It's funny, his name is Firth, but I always think of him second.
Hey, this is We Have Concerns. Hi, Jeff Canada.
Hi, Anthony Carboni.
Hello, concerned citizens. By the way, Jeff, that is your one. You started the episode with your one. Can you
wasn't
believe
even
it?
in the episode. That wasn't even in the episode.
And we were rolling the whole time. When we're rolling, the count starts.
Dang it. Am I starting? Am I starting? Okay.
Yeah, you're going Colin Firth.
I'm going Colin Firth. We got ourselves a story here that I think is pretty interesting. I can only count for one. This was submitted by Synergy, who's doing great work on the Discord. Synergy, Z Mansfield.
No, mine today is by Synergy.
Synergy, that's what I'm saying, doing work.
Fuck,
Z
man.
Synergy Mansfield, just coming up with great stories. This is a fascinating story on two levels. I'm going to start with the first, and then we're going to get to the second because the second surprised me. The first level that it's interesting is that this is a story about exercise. We all know exercise does a body good.
We all loathe it.
We all loathe it, right? We all try to avoid it, but we know it's good for us. We know it's good for us. But the interesting thing that science doesn't really have an answer for is how is it good for you specifically, right? We know in general, exercise, moving your body is going to have certain health benefits. Mm-hmm. But when you break it down, the same exercise regimen done by multiple people has different health benefits.
Sure.
For some people, doing intense exercise makes you lose weight. Other people, it just makes you be able to sustain exercise longer. There are a variety of effects that can happen. Most of them pretty positive. So in general, you can say, yeah, exercise is good.
So what happens to you when you exercise? Like if you're doing a regimen, let's say that you're doing a regimen of like a mix of weightlifting and like aerobic jogging. What happens to your body, you specifically?
For me, I'm fortunate in the fact that if I do any kind of weightlifting at all, I will see a pretty rapid change in my physicality, but it plateaus very fast. Like if I go from not lifting weights to lifting weights, there's like an immediate, I notice it. But then if I keep lifting weights for a year, I don't notice much better.
Oh no, I get pretty ripped pretty quick, but then I don't get any bigger.
Right.
I don't get nothing changes within 6 months. I reach whatever basically my peak physical condition is going to be.
Yeah, and that's the problem is then I get real discouraged and then I stop, and so I vacillate wildly between.
I continue getting stronger,
right.
slowly, but I just whatever physical change happens to me happens very very quickly. And then running, man, for a while I was trying to run every day, and running sucks. It's for dicks. It's the worst.
Yeah.
It's garbage.
Yeah.
I was running every day, and I just don't. I'm just from a genetic makeup of all of the tiny little hairy laborer people, Jeff. My name means coal miner. My grandfather comes from a mix of farming and baking stock, like people, like workers, workers. We're just tiny. Right. We're like dwarves in fantasy terms, We're just tiny and hairy, and we're made to work.
Yeah.
And but like running,
hi ho.
Yeah. We're just a bunch of Gimlis in my family, and like. When I try to run or add aerobic to it, it's like I can't imagine ever running a marathon, because I'll get to the point where like I can run a 5K, and then everything from there on is just like, no, you can't run farther than this.
Yeah.
So that's the way it works for me.
Well, you know that I have run a number of marathons. That number is 7, and I got really into it, but I think I learned fairly quickly that I just think like physically, my body is not built for it. I did it, and I did it to a certain level, but I have friends who were like qualifying for Boston, which is you have to be really fast and have a very low time on your marathon to qualify for Boston. There was no universe where I was going to qualify for Boston. I just plateau. I get to a certain point, no matter how much I do it, I don't really improve. And it's interesting. It's something I learned about myself. It's a little discouraging, but there's this study that was done at the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center that is trying to pinpoint why that is and how we may be able to predict the health benefit for specific individuals rather than sort of generally speaking a vague notion of a health benefit. They say that, some people have improved endurance while others see improved blood sugar levels. Why is it that the same health regimen, why is it that the same exercise regimen results in different effects in the body, individual to individual? They say, to date, no aspects of an individual's baseline clinical profile allow us to predict beforehand who is likely to derive a significant cardiorespiratory fitness benefit from exercise training. So they're trying to figure out what are the indicators in the body that may be able to let us know, like, who's going to benefit the most, who's going to, if you start exercising in a certain way, it's really going to be great for you. You should really do this. Or maybe other people don't expect such great results.
Gosh, you'd think we'd be able to lock that down.
Right?
It seems like the sort of thing we'd be able to lock down. It feels like a thing where you would be able to look at sort of somebody's genome, somebody's family history, and kind of look at all this stuff. And I've had personal trainers and nutritionists try to look at this stuff before too. And there's certain common sense stuff that I believe works, but it feels weird that we can't just do it.
Right. Nobody's really tried to lock it down or measure it until this study. So the way they tried to do it is they decided to measure proteins in your blood, the blood levels of certain proteins. Yeah. 5,000 individual proteins. And they took a sample size of 650 adults. And these are people who were sedentary. These are people who were not actively exercising. And then
which is like everyone right now. You could have taken you could have taken Eddie. Yeah. Just knocking door to door. The first 650 people to say yes during a fucking pandemic. Yeah. Hey, have you been sitting around? Yeah, I've been sitting around. All right. Well, first of all, high five. Me too. Yeah. Second of all, can I measure your proteins?
Yeah. Then they paid these people to participate in a 20-week endurance exercise program. So then they measured them before and after the exercise program, and they were looking for proteins in the blood that indicate they're basically looking for your VO2 max. If you've done any exercising or worked with a trainer, you're
the Apple Watch
probably
loves
familiar.
a VO2 max.
Right, you're probably familiar with that term, VO2 max. Basically, it's the oxygen uptake that is measured. Also, if you know anything about what's his name, the famous cyclist that cheated.
Lance Armstrong.
Lance Armstrong. Basically, the way they cheated is literally like they oxygenated their blood. They did blood transfusions mid-race to like spike their VO2 max. They like oxygenate their blood. It's crazy. So
blood
basically,
doping.
the more oxygen in your blood, the longer you can keep going in an endurance event.
Yeah.
And so one way to check how long you can survive, how fit you are, how long you can endure an endurance race is to check your VO2 max.
Can I just for a moment, can I just say, were you as disappointed as I was when you found out what blood doping was?
Yeah, also super creeped out, but yes.
Yeah, but not as creeped out as I wanted to be by it. And also, it wasn't as cool as I wanted it to be. When you hear blood doping, you're thinking about some real Morbius the Living Vampire shit. You know, like when you hear blood doping, you're like,
feasting on the fit and healthy. Yeah.
Blood doping. Shit, man, what is that?
In a way, that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, in a boring way.
It was like we get people to donate their highly oxygenated blood. We hide in a van halfway through our bicycle race, and we literally put that other person's blood in our body and take our blood out. That's pretty fucked up.
I was also disappointed by how long you can go missing during a bicycle race, and it doesn't really affect the results.
What happened? They just disappeared behind that van, right? They were they were going. I saw Lance Armstrong. He was going, and then that van drove by, and then all of a sudden I don't see him.
Doesn't it suck to think that like one bag of oxygenated blood, like a liter of oxygenated blood, and like even if it took 15 minutes for the transfusion, you're now 15 minutes behind where you were in the fucking race. And let's say they got it down to 7 minutes. Let's say they got it down to 7 minutes for a blood transfusion, a 1 liter blood transfusion during the race. They got it done in 7 minutes. You get on your bike and you can still win. It feels like to me, number one, if you're that fast that you can get 7 minutes behind where you were in a race and then catch right back up and start winning again, you probably didn't even need the blood.
Well, but is that how it works? I don't know enough about the Tour de France.
Man. You said they ducked into a van.
No. But I mean, I know it's a team race. Don't they have like hours off? Don't they like stop and like the other members of the team do the next leg?
Oh,
I think
sure.
That's how it works.
That's right. I forget that it's boring. People are like, why doesn't cycling catch on over here? It's like, because it's just segment by segment. What it is it's 20 tiny races.
Exactly.
And you try to pretend like it's the Tour de France. You didn't
go
across.
Back.
You didn't Tour France.
You didn't tour bus.
You didn't Tour France, asshole.
You toured a bus.
You toured like a mile and a half or some shit. I don't know.
Anyway, I also, before you even get off
make blood doping cooler. That's all I'm saying.
I want to know the pitch session that happened the first time. It's like Lance is like, man, I go fast and then I stop going as fast because my blood there's not enough oxygen in it.
I'm just tired. I'm just tired, and I'm just like, and it's like
wish there was more way to get the oxygen in my blood.
Five sports therapists and fucking a vampire, and they're just sitting around. The vampire snuck his way onto his team, and the first guy's like, well, we can try having you sleep in a highly oxygenated chamber and see what that kind of helps sometimes with runners and things like that.
I guess I could do that.
The second guy's like, well, we could. We could try some more resistance training. We've tried the underwater pedaling and that resistance sort of helps. I think you should just trade out your blood. I'm sorry, what?
Wait, what? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't catch your name when you.
Yes,
are you the new guy?
Dr. Acula Sinberg.
Oh, Dr. Aculasenberg.
Dr. Aculasenberg. Try switching your blood.
You know what? I've never taken advice from a guy in a cape before.
It radiates authority. Who the fuck sits around at a table and is just like, because no genuine doctor could have said that.
How many times should I do it, doctor? Three times. Sorry.
I have crossed oceans of time. No, you've done one segment of the race. A teammate picks up after you do your segment. You've only crossed 5 miles of time. Oceans of time.
So they're looking for the VO2 max, and there are evidently a set of 147 proteins in the blood that indicate your VO2 max. And another set of 102 proteins that can indicate a change in your VO2 max following the completion of an exercise program. So they actually identified these proteins that can be indicators of whether the exercise program is changing your VO2 max. These are proteins that emanate from bones, from muscles, from blood vessels that are all strongly related to your cardiorespiratory fitness level. And they never really made that connection before of what specific proteins need to be measured.
Okay.
And what your baseline fitness level is actually unrelated to your response to exercise training. So it's basically like whether you are fit before you exercise or not bears no relation to how effective exercise will be for you.
Huh. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because if you've never...
Yes, but I never really thought about it like that. I just assumed like the more out of shape you are, the better exercise will help you. But it's not really the case.
Right.
It's like exercise is going to help you a certain amount, and that amount is consistent whether you are out of shape or in shape.
No, I've always assumed that it comes down to something genetic, because I have friends that can, gain and lose 40 pounds like it's nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've had friends that were like,
that's just because you're friends with Christian Bale.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I say gain or lose 40 pounds like it's nothing, he does have to eat only an apple a day and drink one latte a day. And he gets so angry. He yells at everybody. But
his performance in The Machinist, and then to turn right around and play Batman, chef's kiss.
Can we, by the way, talk about Henry Cavill and if he's going to stop? Hey, Henry Cavill, you got to stop.
You're big enough. You're big enough, bro.
Like,
You're big enough.
I was like, wait a minute, because I remember Henry Cavill doing press for Man of Steel. And when they first announced Henry Cavill for Man of Steel, they showed a picture of him, and it was one of his, I'm an attractive British theater guy. You know what I mean? And they showed it, and he was the standard attractive British theater guy. He was like skinny. He was in the turtleneck that was like too big for him. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, this is what Christopher Reeve looked like before they had him be Superman. He'll bulk up a little, and then in Man of Steel,
during when he was Superman,
he got bigger to be Superman, and then he just didn't stop.
Yeah,
he just kept going. Henry Cavill now is like, it's just like the biggest meathead looking guy. It's
true.
Huge.
It's so true. And were we talking about this? Did you and I talk about this? The idea that Superman needs to be super jacked.
Superman should be rail thin.
It just flies in the face of superpowers.
Superman should look like, I mean, he should look like he's never lifted a finger in his life, whether that means he's rail thin, whether that means he's got a dad bod, whatever it is. Because if you're Superman, you have got to bench press a building every day. You've got to do the Mr. Incredible workout from The Incredibles. You've got to be using trains like rowing machines to even get. There's no way Superman looks strong. Batman should be huge.
Right. Batman lifts.
He needs to be huge.
Superman's got superpowers. He doesn't need to lift. There's no lifting required.
No, Superman, there were these dudes. So this is the first time that I really understood the genetic connection to weightlifting. And this is why I think, like, to me, this makes a lot of sense. When I was in high school, I was on the weightlifting team for a little bit. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I couldn't afford a gym membership, so I joined the weightlifting team. And I lifted weights for a little while. I lifted at an incredibly low weight class, way too low. That's the way high school sports are. I think I naturally weighed about 130 pounds, but they wanted me to lift at 119. So that meant every time I went to a meet, if I wanted to make weight, I had to like starve myself and lose all this weight to make weight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's a digression.
It was back when Anthony was a Brock.
There are these two dudes, identical twin brothers, who joined the weightlifting team. Okay?
Yeah.
But they joined at different times.
Ooh.
And they joined, and they were in different shape when they joined. Okay?
Huh.
Within 2-3 months, like one of them joined a few weeks before the other one. But within 2-3 months, they looked exactly the same. I mean, they were identical twins, but I mean, in terms of muscularity, all of the stuff, they looked exactly the same. And I was like, but this one joined after that one. This one's done it less than that one.
Right.
But they reached it, and now they're just there. And I'm still and I was there before them, and I'm working harder, and okay,
Yeah.
I get it.
It's interesting.
And they had like the high school equivalent of a dad bod. You know what I mean? Like they were not in shape when that, like one of them was very not in shape and the other one was a little more in shape. But I just looked and I was like, of course, it's all genetic. It's all genetic.
Well, I don't look at it quite as defeatist as that. I don't think it's proof that, oh, well, there's no point in doing any of it anyway.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you can predict.
Yeah, and I think that this actually might lead to being able to focus in on what's more effective to an individual rather than having some one-size-fits-all advice to people where it's like, oh, do this and you'll look like The Rock.
Right.
No,
because we were all practicing the same way on the same team. Right? That's the other thing.
That's the thing is if we kind of realize that every person is different and we actually get to the point where we can measure these proteins quickly and easily, and you can go, okay, well, this kind of thing is going to be right for this person and this kind of thing is going to be right for that person. I think it could be really a significant improvement in how we deal with individual health in this country or in this world. And the study even goes on to say that they say no pill is ever likely to recapitulate the diversity of benefits from exercise, but if we're talking it's just proteins in your blood that determine some of the stuff, we could probably just put the proteins in your blood.
Yeah.
So
you could heavily change your diet, I suppose. That would help with that.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, we here at We Have Concerns, we're an award-winning science comedy podcast. And as such, we tell you, hey, supplements and vitamins, don't.
Yeah.
That stuff is
it's a slippery slope full of charlatans.
But changing your diet though actually does have like measurable benefit, like health benefits, and maybe you could change something like this.
Yeah, exactly.
I do think now this is interesting though, because it does highlight something else when we talk about things like this one size fits all. It's everything from the food pyramid to the way we measure things like health things like BMI, or even the way my sport, my weightlifting team in high school, we were all lifting according to the same sort of technique and regimen and style. But when you look at stuff like this, say something like the Mediterranean diet or keto or something like that.
Right.
People look at the Mediterranean diet and they're like, oh, well, people, over there, they do the Mediterranean diet and they live longer and they blah, blah, blah. I was like, but they're also genetically different people with genetically different backgrounds from a genetically different part of the world overall. And I have no doubt that the Mediterranean diet helps them a lot and may help me a little, but let's not put everything into this diet because we need to know how specific food. I mean, like, here's the thing that I have to say to science. Play a fucking RPG, assholes. Just play a fucking RPG. Play a fucking roguelike, man. Some characters, you eat a mushroom and their intelligence goes up 10 and you're good. And then other characters, you eat a mushroom, maybe their intelligence goes up 3, but you also lose 3 to your dex and then you're fucked.
Yeah.
Just play an RPG.
That we could take to science. Although I would submit that most scientists have played an RPG at this point.
You would hope so. I don't know. I know a lot of them that are just like, I don't really.
Well, I want to get to the second element of this story.
Get to the second element.
Fascinating. Okay. Because I was really interested in this, fascinated by the article that Old Synergy posted, which was on a website called medicalexpress.com.
Sure. Which sounds fake a lot of the time, but actually I can tell you through my years of science reporting, they're actually a pretty decent site.
Yeah, well, I decided I wanted to find out more about this and see if I could dig into more specifics about this study. And usually I do that fairly frequently. Mm-hmm. And usually you're able to find like, other people have reported on the study, and maybe you can find the actual study, its languages itself. And sometimes that's pretty dense and it's hard to parse, but it's useful. So I started Googling some of the terms from this article. And what I found, Anthony, was information about this study that was done at BIDMC on a number of websites, including Yahoo Style, including ScienceDaily.com.
Okay.
These are reputable sites.
Yeah.
All of them had the exact same story, word for word.
They just printed the press release.
They just printed the press release.
They printed the press release from the university or from the
university.
Yeah.
Not crediting a specific writer.
No. Happens
Just
a lot.
reprinting it happens. Okay. Then I keep searching. I get to earth.com.
Sure.
Earth.com.
The official website of planet Earth. All your information should come from earth.com. Hey, are you looking for information about Earth?
Go to earth.com.
Go to earth.com.
I'm sure that URL is worth six figures at least.
At least.
So earth.com has an article about it. And I'm going to call out the individual author. Sorry, Chrissy Sexton, but I'm calling you out. Earth.com staff writer Chrissy Sexton wrote an article.
Calm down.
That is almost word for word. She changed a couple of the words.
Oh, no.
And credited herself as the staff writer, as the author of this article.
Get paid, Chrissy Sexton.
Yeah. Here's the article. Here's the article as it was reprinted from everybody.
Fuck yeah, get paid.
Now a study published, although everyone can benefit from exercise, yada, yada, yada. Now a study published in Nature Metabolism, led by these BIDMC scientists, provides insights related to these unanswered questions. The results could be helpful for determining the specific types of exercises most likely to benefit a particular individual. Here's Chrissy's article. A study led by investigators at BIDMC is providing new insight into why the benefits of the same exercise can vary among individuals. The research could be helpful for identifying new therapeutic targets for diseases related to metabolism. A little bit rewritten.
Yeah.
Then she just quotes the same quotes.
Yeah.
It's structured exactly the same.
Yeah.
The quotes happen, and then the paragraph that explains them is just slightly rewritten.
Yeah.
And it is exactly the same length, the same exact quotes. There's no insight. There's no additional context. And it just made me go, this, I will give the benefit of the doubt to the research itself. I'm hoping that it is legit and these guys just put out a press release with their findings. But it is something we've talked about on the show many, many times, but it bears repeating that the level of science journalism on the internet and journalism of any kind on the internet is so depressing because everybody just reprinted, even reputable sites, they just reprinted the press release. And the people that didn't just reprint the press release just reworded the press release.
Sure.
There's no actual insight. There's no actual context.
Now, to be fair, and to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, some of these sites, your places like Medical Express, for example, and Science Daily, and those places, they're sort of like a Eureka alert or something like that. They're a place that you go to as an enthusiast or a reporter to find where to start, right? They're basically like a news wire for reporters. So they disseminate the press releases. It's up to the reporters to go to those sites and then find their secondary sources, figure out, pitch their feature or their article based on that. Now, some sites like earth.com, I just looked up Chrissy Sexton on earth.com, and this looks like one of those sites where Chrissy Sexton is probably an editor who is also a writer who is also asked to file X number of things a day. And Earth.com, and Earth.com probably doesn't care if she reposts entirely or makes little changes. She's just got to make her quota. And I get that. I get it.
Doesn't make it right.
Doesn't make it right. Now, if Chrissy Sexton had changed stuff in a way that fundamentally changed the meaning or took the wrong things away, then I'd be like, whoa, Chrissy Sexton.
Yeah. Let me read you another paragraph.
This is more like, hey, This more sounds like somebody's got like a good thing going on and they're getting paid and you're trying to ruin it for them, Jeff.
Yeah, but they're also claiming authorship for something they really weren't an author on.
Well, here's the other thing.
Let me read you another paragraph.
No. Let me read you the fucking riot act, my man. Because here's what I'm going to say. What if they're just using some sort of oh my God, they have pop-up ads. Sorry. It started playing, earth.com started playing a video automatically. Let me just say this. It's entirely possible that earth.com is using some sort of content management system, whether it's a WordPress or something custom, where no matter how she files something, it is always going to say written by Chrissy Sexton, earth.com, and she has no way to change that.
Okay.
What I'm saying is let's not paint Chrissy Sexton as a villain here with a broad brush.
I don't know this person. I don't mean to throw them under the bus.
I thought I was getting into a nice story about what proteins I could eat to get ripped and jacked like Henry Cavill, and now you're turning it into a witch hunt against one woman, Jeff. Is this who you want to be?
I want to read you this.
I thought you wanted to be a ripped Henry Cavill.
There's a quote.
Yeah.
There's a quote by Dr. Robbins, exact same quote. And then the paragraph following the quote is, in the original article, a set of 147 proteins in the blood indicated an individual's cardiorespiratory fitness, or VO2 max, at the start of the study. Here's Chrissy's paragraph following the exact same quote. Initially, 147 proteins in the blood indicated an individual's cardiorespiratory fitness, or VO2 max. It's the same shit. It's just like rearranging the words.
Yeah, baby. Get paid.
And it's in exactly the same format and structure as the original article.
Hey, Chrissy, if you're out there, are you listening to me? Fucking get paid.
I don't think you should be defending this.
Because let me tell you, here's what's going on. Certainly BMDIC put that press release out, hoping people would just reprint it whole cloth.
Regurgitate
That's how PR works. Hey, we wrote your article for you. You're under deadline, and we wrote your article for you. Now, did Chrissy Sexton read it and go, hey, there are some things in here that I think I can word a little more clearly? Maybe she said, maybe I should change this up a little bit. Maybe.
I don't know, man.
Maybe she said to herself, I have 87 other things to file today, and I'm making $38 an article, and I'm a human person trying to live under capitalist society. I don't know. Here's what I am going to say.
Wait, no, let me say something first.
You say something first.
I recognize that I'm saying this on a podcast where we read other people's articles and talk about them.
We do give context. We do give context. We talk.
But I also don't say this was written by me. You know,
really?
I don't say by me, staff writer at wehaveconcerns.com.
No, I take credit for every story that we post.
I think this is
because I can beat up every scientist. There, I said it. I can beat up every scientist. So if you come at me,
well, that's because you were in weightlifting club.
That's right. I was in weightlifting club. No, and once again, Jeff, I am going to say that could just be a function of the content management system that website is using. Maybe behind the scenes, Chrissy is going,
big benefit of the doubt.
I didn't really write this. We should stop saying I wrote this. But I don't know.
Chrissy, if you're listening, I'm sorry to call you out by name. You're welcome to come on the show and talk about the process by which earth.com publishes articles.
No, you're not. I think that's a boring I think that's a boring episode. I think that's an absolutely boring episode. You are not welcome. You want to call you and Jeff want to have your own separate little Skype session? Go ahead. Get on Zoom with Jeff.
I'm just surprised that you're willing to defend this. You are so critical of bad science journalism.
Yes.
And I feel like this is an example of that.
What Chrissy is doing is better than bad science journalism. Bad science journalism reads the information, makes wild conclusions based on it, draws crazy connections that don't exist, and post it under a clickbait headline to get the most number of views. Chrissy Sexton reposted a press release on a site that is definitely not anybody's fucking primary source for anything. And
unless you're looking about information about Earth.
I mean, sure. If I'm an invading alien race, where am I going?
Exactly.
But no, I don't. I think this is I think this is certainly part of the old churn and burn online journalism machine. But she didn't do science a disservice with this. She did not change anything in a way where she's going to get an email from the people at BMDIC. You know what I mean? I have no problem. Certainly if this was high school and we ran it up against the plagiarism thing, we'd be like, fuck, Chrissy, you plagiarized. And now you're no longer on the high school newspaper. But no, I don't care about this as much as you do. You're right.
All right. Well,
I get what you're saying.
Maybe I'm being too harsh.
I get where you're coming from.
I found it to be very, even not just Earth.com and Chrissy, but the whole context of the fact that a whole bunch of places just posted this article.
Yeah.
Without adding any kind of depth or context or corroboration. You know, there's no extra information to be found site to site. It's just all these sites posting their own link to the same exact article.
I get what you're
depressing.
saying. It's very much it's similar to like fan journalism or cottage industry journal, like a games journalism or a tech journalism, where it's like we're reposting the press release from this game, but we're not going to call the people who made the game and be like, hey, we want to make sure that this is true.
Right. And if Chrissy was going to, rewrite some of it, I think she could have taken the extra step to actually add context and depth and maybe a little bit more insight into what's going on.
If you are the Earth.com editor and you're listening to this and you expect that all of your staff writers are writing their own work, maybe look into Chrissy Sexton. But but like scrolling through Earth.com, it seems like a real churn and burn site where they're just reposting all that stuff. And that in and of itself is a problem. You're right. And it should have like a little note along the bottom that says, information provided by this PR release, or transcribed from this or something like that. I get what you're saying. I absolutely get what you're saying. And there should, and also I think this story is interesting enough where somebody should have taken notice of it and ran with it a little bit.
You'd think that a place like Science Daily or Yahoo.
Once again, Science Daily is not going to do that. Science Daily just reprints press releases.
Yeah, you're right.
That's what they do.
There are a number, but like Yahoo credits ANI, which I think is Asian News International. That's at least Googling it. That's what came up.
That shit is lazy. Like
right?
If you're going to steal from some other news service and not know that it just came from a press release, that's when things get weird.
And the sad thing is, okay, here's the worst part, right? Is if you go to bidmc.org, which is the place that actually did this, the original article is credited as written by Tracy Hampton. Does Tracy Hampton get credit on any of these other sites? Nope.
No. Because her job is probably internal PR. For BMDIC.
They put out a press release and
so she'll get credited there, but she doesn't care if she gets credited. That's not her thing. But when you take that job, it's like, hey, you're going to write this thing, and 100 people are going to repost it, and it just comes from us. Just comes from us.
It's just an interesting little look behind the curtain, I think.
I think so too. You're right.
Yeah.
In that sense, you're correct. It's kind of like, well, because we hold science to a higher standard than we hold other stuff, as well we should, right?
Yeah.
But you
would want that. You would want that.
You definitely want that. Like, when you talk about Newswire stuff in mainstream news reporting, it's got to be something that's like from Reuters or the Associated Press or something like that follows certain standards and guidelines. And like, if a local newspaper is going to reprint something from the Associated Press, they have to know that it's up to a certain number of standards. Whereas science rules party,
By the way, if nobody owns sciencerules.party, we need to get that.
We need to get on sciencerules.party right now.
We need to get sciencerules.party and just forward it to the show.
Hey, just take a look right now. See, and if it isn't, put it let's grab it right now. But sciencerules.party, and if not, check sciencerules.pizza, and definitely spell rules with an S and a Z just to see if either one's available. But yeah, when you go to
Rules.party is not owned by anybody.
Shit, get it. When you go to one of these sites, you have to realize that even if it's a big site with like a big sort of .com or whatever, or a nice sounding URL, remember that a lot of these places are just sites that exist to repost things or to scrape news. And I think that is an important point that you are bringing up, is like, hey, remember that you have to, when you're reading particularly about anything, politics, anything, you got to corroborate it as a human being.
And I don't mean to take away from what I think is actually an interesting story that has ramifications for the future. I think that more research in this area about these proteins and about how individual bodies react to exercise is going to actually have benefit to everybody that wants to live longer and be fit and have positive effects from exercise, because it isn't a one size fits all approach. It isn't like just do this and you'll feel better, because maybe my body doesn't react to that.
Right.
And I think that knowing more about that will be useful for everyone.
My body love a pizza.
My body love a pizza too.
I don't know if that means anything.
Ice cream.
I don't know if that means anything in terms of fitness, but my body love a pizza and definitely do love an ice cream. So is that make muscle for me? Genetics say. Genetic will say. Check a protein. Can we get these guys
on the effects of pizza and ice cream on my body?
Yeah, fucking figure that shit out.
I volunteer for that study.
Remember one of the first episodes we did was like, hey, we just want you to sit around and not get up and like eat for 30 days. You remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
I still think about that.
It's a missed opportunity.
I still think about it, man. I wish I could have been part of that study. Hey, everyone, this is the part of the episode where we say, give us your money.
Yeah, we appreciate your support. Really, the only way this show is possible, the only way it happens, is from the generous support of our patrons over at patreon.com/wehaveconcerns. Now, we're not monsters. We're not going to take your money and give you nothing in return.
No.
You likely have been taking this podcast and giving us nothing in return. But you know what?
That's
cool with that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Listen,
we're so cool with that.
We make a show so people will listen to it and hopefully be entertained. If you are listening to the show and you are entertained, you are already doing more than we ever could have dreamed. So thank you for that.
But now we've dreamed a little bit more.
We got to dream big, baby.
To actually, continue to feed ourselves and put roofs over our head. So
the
if you are so
impossible dream, that's what they were singing about. Feeding yourself and putting a roof over your head.
If you would like to help us achieve that impossible dream, we would love for you to head over to patreon.com/wehaveconcerns. We're going to give you something in return. You can give us as little as $1 a month, which is, you would hardly even notice. $1 every 30 days. Come on.
Please.
That would give you access to our Discord, where folks are submitting stories and talking about all manner of things.
We got a great bird pranks channel that's been very active this week. People have been finding a lot of good bird pranks. You know why that is, Anthony? It's spring, which is prime bird pranking season. When a young bird's fancy turns to thoughts of pranks. Exactly. But you know what? Even higher tiers are available. You can get bonus audio. Hey, last week, Shannon Odell was on the show, an actual doctor of neuroscience. And there's a bonus episode waiting for you. All you got to do is become a patron. Yeah. So check it out. wehaveconcerns.com. Nope, that's not right. Don't do it. Patreon.com/wehaveconcerns. I think wehaveconcerns.com/Patreon works too, because we've said that so many times I made it work, but I don't remember. I'll tell you what will work is sciencerules.party. Because Jeff thinks
that'll
I'm
get you right-
joking, but
right
I
to it.
also hope he's buying the .com right now.
I'm buying it.
I also want to say that somebody in the Discord, I want to be sure that I am crediting this properly. It was Jinxed1101 who has submitted some good stories before in the past, but also this week on the Discord drew scientific illustrations of the different kinds of double butts from last week's episode.
Which, thank you. You know, we do, as I said already, we do report on other people's science stories, but sometimes there is the rare occasion where we blaze new trails into new frontiers of science.
Do you know what it
the
is?
Cutting edge.
Is we're big thinkers. And we're
right.
You remember like in the 70s when NASA got like all the big sci-fi minds together in a room and they were like, write and draw and paint and tell us what the future of NASA looks like. That's sort of us.
That's like us except with butts.
Yeah. Many people don't know this, but Isaac Asimov did not have a butt, let alone a double butt. So if you'd like to see that and the other things that are going on our Discord, as well as get bonus episodes and content, like Jeff said, patreon.com/wehaveconcerns. Jeff, there is a potential for this to be a double synergy episode. So I want you to choose for me right now, one or two.
So much pressure. I'm going to go with one. Did I do it? Did I synergize?
It's a double Mansfield.
Nice.
It's what we in science call the double Mansfield effect. Thank you, Z Synergy Mansfield, for submitting this story as well. This comes from the Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis. It's like an Iceland, Greenland situation with the University of Washington. They don't want anybody to be able to find it. So what they did is they put the University of St. Louis in Washington and the University of Washington in St. Louis. And now Viking Raiders will never be able to find
That's good.
the correct one.
You know how many science labs we've lost to Viking Raiders?
Oh, the pillaging that happens.
It's not pretty.
It's not pretty. And Jeff, let me tell you what time it is. It's fuck with rat o'clock.
Oh, it's always fuck with rat o'clock in science.
Baby, it's been a little while since we fucked with rats or mice. It is definitely fuck with rats and mice o'clock.
Oh, what are we doing this time? Are we putting them in a blender and just to see how fast they'll spin?
Now, the University of St. Louis is doing that study, but we're not reading about that one. We're reading about
in Washington.
Yeah, that's the one in Washington. We're doing the University of Washington in St. Louis's study, which is about giving rats ketamine until they get real fucked up and hallucinate.
Okay. All right. We're going to give mice like a trip. Is that what we're doing? We're just like tripping mice?
We're trying to see how quickly we can put mice into a K-hole and ruin their rave. We want to fuck up a music festival for every mouse.
Are we giving mice tiny glow sticks? Is that what we're doing?
You'd hope at the end they would at least get some tiny fucking glow sticks. So here's what's up. This is a team within the Washington University School of Medicine that is trying to study psychosis in humans.
Mm-hmm. And so they're making rats do weird ass shit and seeing how it fucks up with humans.
Yeah.
Look at this rat. This rat is behaving really weird. How do you feel about that? Not good, man. Not good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's normal. And then if you bring in somebody and it's like, we fucked up this rat real good. And they're like, yeah, fuck up that rat real good. It's like, okay, you have problems. That's the study that we're running. It's less a study and more an, are you cool?
Yeah, you have problems. Also, could you join our team?
Yeah.
Because we need people to fuck up some rats.
You're fucked up in just the right way. So this is to figure out why people who are suffering from psychotic episodes experience visual and oral hallucinations, right? And we know that it is connected to dopamine. And antipsychotic medication mostly blocks dopamine receptors in the brain. That's why people who take antipsychotics are like, yeah, my life is better. I am not having psychotic episodes. but I don't really have emotional
Joy.
access.
Yeah.
I don't really have access to my emotions. I feel like I'm very closed off and sort of a little number because dopamine is an important part of that. Now, this group wanted to see if increasing dopamine in mice could cause these visual and auditory hallucinations. And what's interesting about this story is most of the scientific community has been like, you don't need to do that. Mice isn't people. Mice is too different.
Right. Well, right. Because, I guess that makes sense. If you're asking whether something that causes hallucinations in humans also causes it in mice, it feels like maybe the species differentiation is a factor.
Yeah, that's what they've been talking about. There's an idea that a lot of what makes us human comes from these regions of the brain that are not present in other species. And because we think about emotional issues and these sort of particularly, some of these psychotic issues, some of these mental issues, we think of them as uniquely human. We tend to believe that animal brain just don't have the bits.
Right.
Animal brain don't have the bits to do a painting. Animal brain can't write a beautiful symphony. Animal brain can't be psychotic episode.
Right. Well, it also feels like, how do you know a mouse is tripping balls, right? Like a mouse can't be like, I see a giant pool of light exploding from your eyeballs.
Well, buddy, they figured that out. And let me tell you, it's good. But it's also important to remember that a lot of these, particularly auditory hallucinations in people who have psychotic episodes, are sound like voices or sound like background information. So they're not huge sort of trip. They're things that sound normal. Hey, Did you hear that? I hear somebody talking.
I hear the voice telling me to kill you.
I hear an alarm. I hear
chop you up into a number of pieces.
Well, there's a spectrum. There's a spectrum of things people hear, Jeff. Let's not. Yeah. Let's. We want to be a little careful.
Sure. Yeah, but no. Yeah, it isn't necessarily the audio version of the hallucination is not always hearing voices, but hearing some sort of sound that isn't there.
Right. And it can be common sounds. So, but one of the things that the lead author of this study was talking about was, hey, people keep saying, forget about studying mice, forget about studying animals, but the prognosis for psychotic patients has not gotten better in decades because we don't understand the neurobiology of the disease. And also, a lot of the stuff that happens that causes what we would consider a psychotic break in people does not use and does not happen in those human specific parts of the brain.
Oh, interesting. So the claim that is uniquely human is not backed up by observation of where it takes place inside the brain itself.
It's an idea that even if these things happen in simpler parts of the brain, it is the way those things interact with the more complex parts of the human brain that makes them happen, that makes the hallucinations happen. But what this team is saying is nuh-uh.
So
scientists say, nuh-uh, we could study these psychotic breaks and these hallucinations in the brains of animals to begin with, to start making some progress in this field again.
That's interesting. So let me just see if I understand. The claim is that the hallucinations may be happening inside all manner of animals, but it's because of the way those systems interact with more sophisticated human capabilities of the brain that results in the behavior changes. And that's why we don't see behavior changes in animals, even though they may be having a psychotic episode.
That was the hypothesis. And what this team is saying is probably not, dude. What this team is saying is probably also happened to animal. Let's just give it a shot and see what happens. So here's what they did. They cut
into a lot of mice, right? I'm gonna guess there's a lot of
they cut into a lot of mice. But first, what they did was they made a little game that could be played by mice or by people, but not by the two of them together.
Is it Connect 4?
It is Connect 4.
I knew it. I knew I could play that game with a mouse.
Not together. That's against science. That's an abomination of science, Jeffrey. Okay. Mice play with mice. People play with people. Okay? The star-bellied Sneeches are Sneeches with stars, Jeff. And always remember that. So what it is it's a game that basically plays various sounds that are obscured by a background noise. And what the subjects do is it's a shitty game. It's a shitty game. We're hoping for a big day one patch, but even then, it's like, and they say there's going to be DLC, but I think a lot of that content should have been in the game to begin with.
Should have been in the game. It's on the disc. You know, it's on the disc.
I'm paying to unlock something that I've already bought on a disc. So it plays.
I'm paying to unlock a psychotic episode that is already on.
It's
the
already
disc.
on the disc. It's playing human voices that are obscured by background noise or sounds, various sounds that are obscured by background noise. And what you do is, as the player, you just hit the button when you hear the noise. That's all.
Okay.
Easy game.
Right. How do you communicate that to the mouse?
You train
hit the button
mouse
when they hear the noise.
Well, you train the mouse. If they hear the noise, they hit the button, they get a treat, right? It's Pavlovian. Right. So this is some sort of classic conditioning for mice.
Oh, I get it. So you get the treat if you hear the noise, then we obscure the noise, and if you still get it correct, you get the treat.
Right.
Gotcha.
But the mouse will still push the button whenever it thinks it heard the noise.
I've changed my opinion. This sounds like a fucking awesome game.
This game rules. It got a lot of bad press before it came out, but now that it's out, I really enjoy it.
No, you're right. This is amazing.
I think maybe
Game of the Year.
I think maybe we drummed up some controversy within the press that we didn't need to. So basically, what this is based on is the reason that we think a lot of people that have psychotic breaks hear voices is we're constantly trying to hear voices. We're wired to hear other human voices. Right. We're trying to hear things that are important to us. And so when there are other background noises or you're in a noisy place, have you ever been like in a bar or in a crowd and you think you hear somebody call out your name?
Oh, many, many, many times. Yes.
Yeah. And it's because your brain is like, oh, I'm trying to listen and there's a lot going on. And I know that I'm looking for something that's relevant to me. And so your brain goes, somebody said Jeff. Nobody said Jeff.
And this is important. It's important when people say Jeff. Mm-hmm. So I'm always keyed up to pick that out of the chaos around me.
Right. You're specifically listening for important phrases that you've heard before. And what that means is you are also listening to anything your brain could mistake for that important phrase you've heard before.
Right. Right. Yeah. This happens to me all the time since being a dad, where I will hear my kids calling for me after they've been put to bed or something.
Yeah.
I will hear my kids calling for me and they weren't. I'll hear some weird thing and I totally experienced this.
That's totally it. So basically, the humans would click a button whenever they heard the sound. The mice would poke their little noses into a hole whenever they heard the sound. Isn't that adorable?
Oh, adorable.
Isn't that adorable? And then the human subjects were asked to rate how confident they felt that the sound they identified was real. So they hit the button and then they move a slider on a scale from very little to I super heard that noise. The mice, the mice just poked. That's mouse version. And what they found was human subjects who had more sort of hallucinations of hearing the sounds during the test were also more likely to experience spontaneous hallucinations, even though none of them had a psychiatric condition. And we think that there is something that, like, there's a neural circuit in the brain that takes prior beliefs and evidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
My kid is crying. I'm hearing for my name. I'm listening for my name.
Yeah.
And the higher the baseline of dopamine, the more you rely on those prior reliefs. You are more likely to hear your kids cry out in the night when they're not, when your dopamine levels are higher.
Huh.
So
interesting.
So whether you have a psychotic condition or not, you are more prone and primed for these auditory hallucinations when you have a high level of dopamine, which means it's not necessarily dopamine levels. By giving antipsychotics dopamine lowering drugs, we're not necessarily getting rid of the condition.
We're just getting rid of our ability to observe it.
It's cold medicine. We're masking it.
Yeah.
We're not helping the underlying condition. Now, what they wanted to do was they wanted to see what they could learn from these mice.
Oh, God.
So mice, they found that mice could be primed. The more often they played the sound for real, the more the mice would think they heard the sound during the game.
Right. Right.
But then what,
that makes sense.
But then what they wanted to do, we got to measure that dopamine, and the mice can't move a slider, and they can't say that they volunteer for these tests.
Boy. Oh, no.
We got to stick a fiber optic cable in their brain.
Yeah, we got to open those brains right up. Stick something artificial right in there.
Now, we've done this before. We've talked about it. We love to stick a fiber optic cable into a mouse brain. God,
we love it. Just the visual alone is worth it. You know,
if you can get 400 mice together and stick the little fiber optic cable in their brain, and then connect that to like a cool, like you punch little holes in your ceiling. It's like a beautiful, glowing, swirling star field.
I mean, this is way better than the actual mice-sized glow sticks because it's coming out of their brain.
Mm-hmm. It's like you're
gonna have a mouse rave either way.
Maybe the stars are connected to my thoughts. The mice love it. They don't love it. So basically, what they did was they put this fiber optic sensor into the mice, and then they gave some of the mice ketamine.
Okay. All right. Jack them right up. See what happens.
Yeah, and ketamine, of course, can distort perceptions of sight and sound. And so the mice who got the ketamine were far more likely to show signs of hallucination-like events. And this is evidence for a similar brain circuit between excess dopamine in mice as it is in humans, which means, just like these scientists were saying, the relevant parts of these brains ain't so different. We can run medical studies on these mice. Because right now, you think about it, if we want to run trials for a new antipsychotic medication, we've got to get the medication to the point where we feel like we can use a human clinical trial. We can only do research on humans because we had this belief that we can't do early round studies on animals.
But now we know we can get mice fucked up.
Now we know that we can fuck up mice real good.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to fuck them up, and then we can unfuck them with our experimental medication.
Yeah, or kill them.
Yeah.
Because now we can test things that we don't know. You know what I mean? Now we can test medications where we're like, this could be dangerous or this could be it. And you don't want to give that to a person.
No.
That's why we give it to the mice. So this opens up all kinds of new avenues. The team says, despite the tremendous debilitating nature of psychotic conditions, there has not been a change in how we treat those conditions for a very long time. Pharmaceutical companies have given up, and it's because difficult. It's difficult. We can't ethically do it, and our understanding of the brain has stagnated because we're waiting on, all of these different brain mapping studies we're doing, all these things where we're like, hey, it's going to take us another 20 years to finish this mapping. And it's like, people need stuff now.
But there's no ethics when it comes to mice.
Maybe there ain't no ethics when it comes to mice. That's why you always want to go to a mouse party if you can.
Oh yeah, ain't no party like a mouse party because a mouse party ain't got no ethics.
It's got no. It's like being on a boat in international waters. You know what I'm saying?
Anything goes. Yeah.
Can I tell you something? As somebody who's been on a boat in international waters, now that I've been on a cruise,
did anything go?
it was fucking boring as shit, man. And they still charge me the same amount of money for all those drinks. I feel like international waters is mostly a scam.
That's unfortunate.
It wasn't a single
such
pirate ship.
Plan. No,
Not a single one.
Could you do anything you wanted, or did you even try?
Well,
Could the captain marry you at least?
I didn't find the captain attractive, and I was already in a relationship. But probably, I did get to sit at the captain's table one night. That was pretty cool.
I think that means you're married.
I think that means we're married. No, so this is cool. This means that we, number one, are figuring out computational approaches to studying hallucinations, which that's, man, hard data on hallucinations. That's one of the hardest things to have hard data on.
Right. Yeah.
What are you seeing? Crazy shit, man. Well, I'll write it down.
Yeah. What's that mouse seeing?
Would you rate it?
Looks
How
like crazy shit.
crazy would you rate the shit? Pretty crazy? Like a 7 crazy? All right. Well, I don't know what that means to you, but I'll write it down.
Yeah. That's why the pharmaceutical companies just gave up. They're like, fuck this. Man, I got a bunch of 7s on a paper.
People are always saying that mental health medications aren't this is a very American way to say it, but what I've always heard is like, it's not a sniper rifle, it's a shotgun. Isn't that a terribly American thing to say?
It is a terribly American thing to say. It's also super depressing in what the ramifications of what that means.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, so we're
just going to shut it all off,
buddy. I take 2 medications regularly, and they're basically like one of the medications I took. I think I told you this. One of the medications I took, I lost feeling in my legs for 2.5 days.
Oh yeah, you did tell me that when you were on the set of Star Wars show, right?
Yeah. I had to walk around. I couldn't feel my legs. I felt like I was going to fall over all the time. I tripped like 19 times. I had my hand on somebody's shoulder the whole time, and I was trying to play it off like it was normal. Only one person on set knew. But when I called my doctor, I was like, yo, this is what's happening. They're like, yeah, that do happen. Why should that happen? What does feeling in my legs have to do with low-level depression? Nothing.
Because we're going to shut off this general vicinity.
Yeah.
We're not going to shut off the depression part. We're just going to shut off all this stuff right around here, which may be partly controlling the legs parts of the brain.
And we don't want to make big changes to this medication. We only want to iterate on it slowly because we can only try it on humans because animals is too dumb to try it on. Yeah. But now we can figure out more of these connections between human and animal brains and human and animal experiences of emotion and sensory perception. And it's huge, baby. And all we got to do is kill a couple thousand more mice.
Anthony, I've never heard you more excited about decimating some mice.
And buddy, I've gotten excited about decimating mice before.
Yes, you have.
We're a science comedy podcast. I feel
like you're really excited now.
There's nothing I love more than to hear somebody killed a couple hundred mice. If I hear, there was this giant mouse massacre, I go, somebody learned something.
Somebody learned
something today.
You know what? That's what I wish for everybody listening. I hope that each and every one of you learned something today. And by that, I mean kills hundreds of mice.
You just please learn something if you're going to do it. Because if you're just going to do it because you think it's fun to do it, tell somebody.
That's not. Yeah, that's not.
You need to talk to someone.
You got to learn something.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you, I guess, to good old Z Mansfield for the double whammy again.
Double whammy. Just doing the work. You know what I'm saying?
And I know I've mentioned this before. I am sorry that we were unable to get to them last month for various reasons. But because I asked Jeff 1 or 2 today, I will talk about story number 2 for patrons over on patreon.com/wehaveconcerns. Remember that if you support us there, you also get access to the Discord, to bonus audio, to bonus video. Our bonus episode last week with Dr. Shannon Odell, which was really fun. All that stuff.
Unbelievable. She was top tier guest.
Top tier guest.
She was fantastic.
Top tier guest, especially for a scientist.
Yeah, you would expect so boring.
Best of the worst.
But no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, she was almost not boring. No, she was great. She was great. She was delightful and very fun.
So if you want to hear all that, definitely head to patreon.com/wehaveconcerns. And until then, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.